you so much for being here. Thank you all. It's lovely to see so many of you here, and so nice to be amongst people who are willing to fight for their country. You know, that is what matters, is being amongst people willing to stand up and fight for what is right. And that's all of you in this room. So I say thank you very much for being here. I always feel about coming to America, you know, it's like being in a warm bath. I get here, it's relaxing, it feels good, the people are nice. Not that I'm surrounded by people when I'm in a bath normally, you understand. But when I'm in the UK, it's rather like being in a cold shower. You know, you just stand there and withstand it while it hurts you with the cold of it all. And that's where I come from. So just to sort of clear up some points before I start, I'm not Milo. And I'm not Milo's mum either. And neither am I an angry Ellen DeGeneres, which I also get. I don't think I look anything like her. I don't even understand it. Or I get the female Farage quite a lot as well. But I am none of those things. My name is Katie Hopkins, and I spend a great deal of my time these days in no-go zones around the world, highlighting what surely faces us all if we don't stand up and fight back to the dangers in our midst. And I'd like to share with you some of those experiences that I've had as I've traveled around, if I may. The threat against me, myself, as a white Christian conservative, has become a little bit more real of late. Sometimes I feel like I'm up there on the endangered species list, you know, with the black rhino, except he has an advantage because he's black. I am under attack, as so many of us are. Only last week, a lovely lady called she was in a plot to behead me with her partner. He was called Yara I think. I mean, I don't know. Excuse me if I pronounce those names wrong. But yeah, thank you. They had a plot between them to chop my head off as a wedding gift to each other. She went out and she bought a plastic dummy for him to practice on and a hunting knife, and they practiced chopping my head off. It was a plot. There was 10 guys from our police force who came to my house in the middle of the night and installed alarms in my house and told me not to worry. Yeah, all right then. But fortunately now they have been found guilty and sent down. But these are the sorts of threats you face if you speak out against this religion. And this is why they try to, or how they try to silence you. And that's why I'm here really speaking out, because if I live to fight another day, then so do we all. And I think that's important. And my message is very simple. Do not let this great country fall as we have fallen. Do not let yourselves become the UK. Do not let happen to you what has happened to us. Let us be a warning. You know, and I'm not here to knock my country. I love my country. I wanted to fight for my country. I was sponsored through Sandhurst by the Royal Intelligence Corps. I had a 35-year regular commission. We went in as a platoon of 32 girls, and we came out as 8 more or less men. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the first female general. My epilepsy put pay to that. But that was always my ambition. So I do love my country, but this fight is real. The UK today is a place that few of us recognise. I get letters and emails from 60 and 70-year-olds, really upsetting ones. They're struggling to make sense of the country that they love, you know, just like my mum and dad. And they ask me, you know, has the world gone mad? You know, what's going on? How have things changed so fast? And some of them emailed to tell me that they're glad that they're old because their time here is nearly up and they won't have to live to see their country fall. And those are truly upsetting. They're hard messages to read, and they're really hard messages to respond to as well. And I'm wary of painting too depressing a picture. I've not come here to be part of the fear. I've not come here to talk my country down or to fail to see the good in Britain. But there are some blunt truths I think it's my duty to tell. You're more likely to be raped in London than in New York. You're more likely to be attacked with acid from a guy on a moped in East London than in Islamabad. And when it comes to terror, the head of the UK MI5 said the risk is now impossible to contain or to control. Our police officers in Muslim-controlled areas of the UK emailed me and alleged that the local imam at the mosque is in charge of selecting the police officers he will allow to patrol his areas and his neighbourhoods. In a relentless programme of appeasement by the establishment, they seem to put the lives of the jihadi and the Muslim mafia ahead of the lives of our own daughters. And in the latest recruitment round for our police, white British males were excluded from the day's coaching on how to pass the recruitment day. You were only allowed to attend if you were Muslim or gay or ethnic minority or black. You could not apply if you were a regular white guy from Britain or a regular white woman from Britain. I applied for a place for my husband just to see if he'd get through. You know, he's vaguely male. But they said no. Without a minority card to play or a race card, you've got no grounds for redress in my country anymore. And the UK is now formed of two distinct territories. There's Londonistan, as I see it, and then there's a place called the rest of the UK. If you took Britain and put it on its side, it's kind of like a little baby America. You know, you have the big areas that are very liberal leaning, like London, like New York, like California. Like London is California, like the bad bits as far as I see it. And all the good bits of America are the people I see here today. London is Bill de Blasio's New York. And I believe he's an utter cockwomble, if ever I met one. That's quite a British word. Bill de Blasio may be tall, but he's the smallest man I know. And there is a better place, a place where I live, where my children live. It's called the rest of the UK. It's a place where hard-working Brits just want to do a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. They want to look after their families. They want to love their country. They'll fight for their country. They support Trump. They voted Brexit. And occasionally we want to have a barbecue with our families, but we can't because it rains all the time. But you know, it's a good place. And it's a place where I come from. And it's a place where I put my lovely husband and my children. And it's the place that I live in. A place called the rest of the UK, where people have grown weary about speaking out because it's just not worth the hassle. There's a mass silencing of thought from the Brexiteers, of us deplorables, considered racist or stupid or wrong. We're browbeaten into shutting up. But you know, we're still here. There's a quiet rumble of discontent at the state of Londonistan, and that rumble is getting louder. Our win for Brexit was just like your win for Trump. And I went on CNN a week before Trump was elected and called it. I told them, yes, he will win, you just can't hear it. That went down really well. And her face was a little like a slapped bottom. But when we stand together, our voices are heard. And the quiet rumblings turn into a roar. And we're not alone. Across Poland and Italy and Austria and Germany, the voices of the discontented are rising up to reject the globalists' voices and the agenda of the people that are managing the decline of Europe and letting us fall. Sebastian Kurz's People's Party, the Patriots of Poland, in Germany, the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland. You can feel the determination of the people I talk to make change happen. I can feel the possibilities. There is hope. We don't have to watch our country fall. And there is action we can take. And there's three things I'd quickly like to run through, if I may. And firstly, most importantly, we must reject the narrative. Resist the narrative. Just because someone said it and they're wearing a uniform with a badge doesn't make it true. If we're scared, a strong narrative can be reassuring, like when we're little and bad things happen and you run and tell your teacher. Well, so too with terror. We look around for someone in a uniform to tell us what to do. These days in the UK, they say run, hide, tell. My granddad fought in the war. These were not orders that he would recognise. And in the quiet calm of our streets, when the threat is neutralised and yet another terrorist is taken down, the media machine goes into action. And it's terrifying to observe. We stand united. We are not cowed. The terrorists will never win. Repeated over and over by the Muslim mayor, by our Prime Minister, by the Chief of Police. The mantra of multicultural acceptance, the same script every single time. We stand united. We are not cowed. We stand shoulder to shoulder. And the media run around with their cameras showing people drinking cups of tea like that's going to solve the problem. The real truth is not this fabrication. We do not stand united. Our daughters are left crumpled on the sidewalk. Some lost limbs under a truck, like the images you had of those bikes strewn across the cycle path in New York that time, the Argentinians. We do not carry on as normal. Mothers and fathers are burying their daughters. We're just into the 1-year anniversary of the Manchester Arena attacks. A boy I know wrote to me, and he's learning to use his legs again, still, after they were blown apart in Manchester, and he doesn't carry on as normal. Others seem to carry on as normal because what's the alternative? What, hiding in your home? Is that defeat? It's not normal to build walls on bridges or rings of steel around our Christmas markets, but that's what we have to do in Europe. And if this is terror losing, I would hate to see terror win. Enough of the candle lights, enough of your hashtags, enough of your heart-shaped gestures at the sky, enough of turning on and off the lights of the Eiffel Tower. I'm epileptic. Flashing lights don't do me any favour whatsoever. You know, I wrote this all in a column of mine, and I was reported to the British Metropolitan Police for hate crime and for inciting violence against Muslims. We must resist the narrative. The second thing we can do is to arm ourselves, not just with the help of the NRA, although I am now a card-carrying member of the NRA, thank God, even though I can't carry anything back home. I can't even carry an electric toothbrush to defend myself with, but I still am a card-carrying member. On my car, it says I am an NRA member. Every other mum on the school run has baby on board. I have bullets on board my car. That's what I like to think, even though I don't. But sadly in the UK, we don't have the luxury of the Second Amendment like you do. Our police on our streets are armed with the equivalent of Clorox and a Band-Aid. Some even have a note from their mother excusing them from games, I think. But you know what? We can arm ourselves with information. Information that we find closest to the source, not from Google or fed through some kind of filter from the Fruit Loops in California on Facebook. We must look for our own truths. I spent 48 hours in the migrant camp in Calais, in the jungle. Quite appropriate, it seems to me, where African migrants masquerading as children and asylum seekers fought their way through tear gas and steel fencing to break into the trucks crossing from France to Dover to sneak into the UK. My photographer was lynched, wasn't Oliver. His camera was stolen, his wallet taken, he was beaten up. And he went home because he was so badly beaten. I had my arm dislocated for my trouble, and they came for us with steel bars. We were put in the back of a van and taken out of the camp to safety. I went back in the next day and I was told to cover up by the charity workers there. The do-gooders, the Democrats, you know the types. They told me to cover up my shoulders because it was offensive to the Muslim men. So I stripped off. And they didn't like my tiny tits much better either. I met a lady with a little boy. You know, I was trying to find this quieter story, real women in that camp and their problems. And so with her, with her little boy, it was the first child I'd actually seen in the migrant camp, the first one. She invited me into a little caravan thing. And it turned out her little boy was actually a little girl. But she had to dress him as a boy so that at night the men wouldn't come and take him away. I learned a big lesson from that as well. I was really naive. You know, migrants don't come here for a new life and to leave their old life behind. Not at all. They bring with them all the old conflicts from home. The Somalis hate the Eritreans, who hate the Afghanis, who don't speak to the Libyans, and they're all still fighting. They come, but they do not start a new life. They bring all the old hatred they ever knew to our communities. I spent 48 hours in the cab of a large haulage truck because I wanted to understand the dangers of the crossing that people were making. I always said that one day someone would die driving these trucks because our truckers, our British truckers, are at risk from the migrants. And indeed, one since has been killed by the migrants who threw steel bars under his wheels in order to stop his truck. And I had my eyes open once more. These entire truck stops overnight are run by the mafia. The drivers are paid to turn a blind eye so that overnight the trucks are filled with migrants. Officers at the port are paid to turn a blind eye and wave these trucks through. It's much more systematic than we imagine. I travelled from the coast of Libya to southern Italy to join the migrants crossing the Med. And you know, there's charity boats. They call themselves Save the Children. You know, the NGOs, the rescue boats. Nothing like that at all. They are a ferry service across the Med. And to be honest with you, for transparency, it's scheduled, it's organised, and it's all controlled by the mafia. Hundreds of thousands of migrant men, fully aware of their rights, given places in local hotels to stay at 35 euros a day. That's a sum that's more than most locals earn in southern Italy. And when I carried on my journey and talked to these men in these hotels, they were blockading the roads in the local villages in southern Italy because their Wi-Fi was too slow. The rice that they served was too soft, and they were protesting their rights. These are the people that come here, and I see that same pattern happening on your southern border. That is going to be a systematic movement of people and a highly profitable one, and it will be military-aged fighting men that make it through first. That's the way these things work. I met a woman on the tarmac on the side of the road in the heat, and she looked ill. She said she was poorly. She said she was there to service the drivers as they passed on the way, and she was trafficked for this life. And these do-gooders, remember, they tell us they're saving lives. Well, they're not saving lives. They're destroying lives while they're pretending to do good. And I walked the suburbs of no-go Sweden because Trump said Sweden had fallen. And the media crucified him for that. They mocked him relentlessly, but I can confirm firsthand Sweden has fallen. As I arrived in the suburb of Rinkeby, a woman grabbed me, an elderly woman, the third generation migrants. They're lovely people there. They're really disappointed by the new arrivals. She said to me, she grabbed me by both arms and she said, no, go back. Wrong hair, wrong face, wrong place. She was a kind lady. And she was trying to tell me that I'd made a mistake coming to this place, that this wasn't a place for me. No-Go Sweden has fallen to the migrants, and the Somalis battle the Eritreans, who still battle the Afghanis, and you can now get hold of a hand grenade for as little as 50 euro, just like they did in the camp at Calais. 2 hand grenades were found in a bin just outside the police station within an hour of me being there. And a week later, a Muslim took a truck and rammed it into the pedestrians in the shopping arcade. As you will recall, I'm sure, one was an 11-year-old girl. It's curious, how the bodies of our daughters slain by Islamist terrorists never make the front pages of any of the press. I interviewed a girl who lived in the forgotten suburbs because it was all she could afford. And she can't go out at night. She daren't leave her home. She was burgled, but the police couldn't come because their cars would be looted or torched. And she said she's no longer allowed to carry pepper spray to defend herself because a girl that was attacked by a gang of Muslim men accidentally pepper sprayed the wrong guy and was prosecuted for GBH. Sat in the darkness of our home, and I can remember it. It was a scary place. She wouldn't even allow me to take pictures of her face with the camera for fear of reprisals by the Swedish feminists for speaking out, because they support the migrant men at all costs. And in the game of Top Trumps, the victim edition, if you're a migrant, you win every time. Swedish feminists, in fact, feminists as a whole, have never been more disappointing. I fail to see how they support women. And I met the head of the toughest fire station in Sweden, who was exceptionally good looking, just as by the way. But he was putting a bigger fence around the station to stop migrants coming in and vandalizing the fire engines. They would steal the cutting equipment from the vehicles. And I asked him whether these walls were our future. He looked at me really strangely because he was surprised. He said, no, it's too late for that. We'll no longer build walls to keep people out. Going forwards, we'll build walls to keep the people we love safe inside. And that still gives me the shivers now. And these stories come straight from the mouths of men and women who live this stuff every day. No lens, no filter, no camera work, no editing, no Google ranking, no New York Times. I recently got back from joining the white farmers of South Africa being ethnically cleansed from their land. They think within 3 years there will be no more white farmers at all left to farm the lands because the ANC condones the killing of whites. And I learned firsthand there about their horrific truths that the media won't acknowledge because they're the wrong colour. You can only be racist, it seems, if you're white. And I never understand these things. But you know, if we resist this narrative, if we can, just by speaking to the people that we live amongst, people in the street, we can find our own truths. And that's exactly why I'm here in Michigan right now. We will have the stories of the people, and we can get them to the people in power. And finally, the third arm of this thing that I need from you all, and you all have in spades, is the moral courage to fight. Somehow, we have to find the courage to withstand the constant attacks that we face. And Trump is the Jedi master at this stuff. I love him. We know what it's like to be ostracized by friends who don't like our opinions. People can be unkind. The media can be merciless. But we all need to find the moral courage to stand strong. I have battles of my own, of course. I have Mrs. who sees my head as a prize. And I've got the pocket-sized Muslim mayor of Londonistan, who's about as useful as a chocolate teapot. And there's, other issues that I have with him. He spent £1.7 million on an online hate police force, policing mostly my Twitter account, it seems. I was interviewed under caution by the Major Crime and Homicide Command for a column I wrote in a national newspaper. I was referred to the Crown Prosecution Service for my commentary on life because a complaint was made by the Society of Black Lawyers. I look forward to meeting the Society for White Lawyers one day. And my family are reported to social service on a fairly regular basis. People hope that they can take my children from me just by suggesting that I'm doing something wrong. They hope that that will silence me. The last time social services rang and they said they had a complaint. But I just rung my children at home with my husband, and he made them a prawns salad. And because prawns are quite posh in my family, because I come from the rougher side of the tracks, that's what I told the guy from social services. But my husband just made them a prawn salad, but he didn't sound that impressed. But There's also vexatious litigation, and we know how that works. I'm just back from Molenbeek, the jihadi capital of Europe, and as we speak, the mayor of Molenbeek says she's going to sue me for defamation because I've said nasty things about her town, known as the jihadi capital of Europe. I fail to see how you can have a much worse reputation than that. Anywho, I'm not complaining. I have no self-pity. You know, I put myself out there, so I have to suck it up. And if I don't like it, I can stay at home, sit on my sofa, shut up, and become a vegan. And none of those things are going to happen anytime soon. But, thank you. Big meat eaters here in the house. But resistance is key. And when we come under attack, we need to make like an arrowhead and feel the criticism falling away from you as you move forward. You know, I get a lot of emails from 16 and 17-year-olds who feel like they don't have a voice in school anymore either. They can't say they're a Brexit supporter. They can't speak out. And I say to them, you know, make out like you're diving into a swimming pool and feel the water coming off of your sides. Imagine that's the criticism you face and keep moving forwards. The Liberals who reject Brexit or try to discredit Trump, they gave birth to our determination to succeed. They are Frankenstein and we are their monster. And I would say that we are big and we are bad and we are coming for them, and they should be afraid because we're not going to take this anymore lying down. We are going to stand up and we are going to fight back. And I say we can do this. Yes, we can. That would work so much better if I was black. We can commit to refuse the narrative. We can commit to arm ourselves with our truths, with no liberal filter. And we can commit to have the moral courage under attack to keep moving forwards. This is our time. This is Michigan's time. Do not become like Britain. Get furious and fight back. Thank you very much indeed.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.